Jeff Hirst, and we are going to be interviewing in just a moment Joan Stuart Ross, who is in Seattle. Welcome, Joan.
Hi, Joan.
And Jeff's going to make a few announcements first.
Okay, so a few announcements. We have a couple workshops coming up, and one of them is with Lisa Pressman and I, and it's a painting class, and we have one spot open in the class. We just had somebody had to drop from the class, so there's one spot that just opened up. So if you're interested in that, let me know, and can help you get registered. It's an advanced class, so we've done it already, and it's really great. So the next class is with Paula Rowland and myself, and that's going to be in October, and it's a large-scale drawing class. You can find that on my website at jeffreyhirst.com. Look under online classes, and it's about working intuitively and on a large scale on paper. Okay,
and I have one announcement about a class. As many of you know, I walk to the studio every day and walk through these gorgeous gardens that I see and take pictures of the flowers because it absolutely sets the tone for my day. So I thought what I would do is do a watercolor journaling class, which I've been keeping a journal of some of these floral photographs that I have so that I can then work large later on. So the watercolor journaling class is going to be on Monday, September 21st from 11 to noon, and I'd love for you to join me. So that should be really fun. And for anyone who takes that class, I'm going to give a $50 discount to a watercolor painting class that I'm going to offer after that. So would love for you to join us. Anyway, today we have the privilege of interviewing Joan Stuart Ross, and I am going to read her bio. Joan Stuart Ross was born in Boston and immigrated to Seattle in 1968. She is a contemporary Northwest artist working in encaustic painting, mixed media, collage, and monotype. She earned an MA and MFA from the University of Iowa, studied at Yale Divinity School, Yale School of Law, and the University of Washington, and earned a BA from Connecticut College. Joan has won the Betty Bowen Award from the Seattle Art Museum, the Kathy Kollwitz Award for her advocacy of women artists, a Rome Fellowship from the Civita Institute, an Artists Project Award from For Culture, and a Fulbright Hays Travel Grant to Vietnam. Joan has had residencies at the Epsi Foundation, Pilchuck, Centrum, Playa, Balustrade, Cooper, Huset, and Rancho Linda Vista. Her work is exhibited nationally and internationally, most recently in Korea at the Tacoma Art Museum, the Moses Lake Museum, and at Inscapes Immigration Station, commissioned by the Wing Luke Asian Museum. Joan's artwork is represented by Ryan James Fine Arts, Kirkland, Seattle, Waterworks Gallery, Friday Harbor, Washington, and River Sea Gallery, Astoria, Oregon. Her art is in the collections of the Seattle Art Museum, the states of Washington and Oregon, King County, Seattle Portable Works, Harborview Medical Center, the University of Washington's Suzzallo Library, the University of Illinois, the Museum of Northwest Art, and many other public institutions and private collections. Joan has served on the boards of Seattle Print Arts, the Bumbershoot Festival Commission, Seattle Arts Commission, and the Civita Institute. She has taught art at Pratt Fine Arts, monotype, and encaustic in her own studio, and was a tenured art professor at North Seattle College from 1996 to 2009. She is a partner of Ballard Works and maintains her studio there and in Nakota, Washington. And Joan's artist statement. My work is inspired by imagery of growth and generation. Explorations and inventions of color relationships, their juxtapositions, and dynamic arrangements are intrinsic to my art. To engage color as value and depth is the crux of my art's search for life force, energy, and meaning. Metaphorical shapes, complementary colors, symbols, and glyphs all suggest a varied undercurrent. The vigorous forms in my paintings, prints, and drawings are inspired by kinetic natural shapes, such as the poplar tree, hydrangea blossom, oyster shell, grid, and various forms of text. Color and mark, rhythm, repetition, pattern, and diversion seek to reveal the spirit of my visual experience. At the start of the pandemic's lockdown, I was stressed out with anger and grief. I am making drawings, paintings, reading books, breathing, and calming down. I'm opening up to make work that expresses and delves into my state of mind and into the minds of like and other searching minds. I had been mostly working in my small living room area at home on a loaded down portable table, but have returned to my larger studios in Seattle and Nakota, Washington. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Joan. We really appreciate you being here and taking the time.
Well, it's a treat. Thank you for inviting me.
It's great having you.
Before we get started, tell us about that piece behind you. That is beautiful.
Well, I had started drawing on my husband's crosswords. This is one, I don't know if you can see it, but I'll flash it in front. But he's got piles and piles of crossword puzzles that he's finished, and I started drawing on them.
Funny.
And turning them into kind of arabesque, convoluted maze drawings. And I just was doing it as a kind of peaceful thing to do, where my energies were focused in both on listening to audiobooks and drawing these drawings on top of crosswords. So I've been doing that for a year or two, and the drawing in back of me is a composite of, there's 10 or 12 of those drawings collaged together, cut, pieced, and this particular work is 22 by 30 on a piece of
So you took
Reeves printing paper, and I've been doing them going even bigger. I take them and slam them down on top of the paper with matte medium, and I switch them around as I work. Sometimes, you have to kind of rip it up and put it in another place. So I've been actively collaging these, in a way, contemplative pieces. So they're a combination of a quiet period of working and then a very activated period of putting them together and enlarging them and making them into almost a language, both metaphorically and realistically. They're a hidden language that tries to speak.
They're beautiful.
Yeah.
What kind of paper are you adhering the newsprint to?
Yeah, I'm working just with the typewriter paper,
Right.
that these crosswords are on, down onto Reeves BFK. That's a paper that I usually use,
Okay.
Reeves BFK.
And are you painting and drawing on top of that?
I'm collaging and drawing on top, yes.
Okay.
Quite a bit of collage on top of cut forms that are from other drawings and also from discs. I sit and cut discs sometimes for hours. So I have these cut out circular forms, the negative and the positive, and then lots of little pieces here and there, and then pieces of the drawing themselves. Sometimes I cut into them. Here's one I'll just sort of put up here where I've cut into the drawing. This is a journal, not a journal, where I've been using notebooks where I fill journal pages that are the past, and I'm getting rid of it, getting rid of the past. It's actually fantastic. And some of these journals were stuff I'm so glad I'm forgetting, So yeah, I cut them out, put them together, and it's been a freeing kind of thing.
They almost look like stained glass a little bit.
Well, yeah, mosaic is something I love.
Right.
Mhm.
Mosaic shapes that fit together like puzzles.
Yeah, and some of them, I've seen a lot of them, and some of them I like how you have, there's like an empty space, and then you've got like all this movement going on within the same drawing. So there's real kind of parallels that go back and forth in contrasts that are really nice. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of them. They're really
Yeah,
great.
they're very unique. I love them. I wanted to like talk about your history because I think it's really fascinating. So you studied at Yale Divinity School.
I did. I majored at college, Connecticut College. It was Connecticut College for women when I went there in the 60s. And Dad told me I could major in whatever I wanted. You know, he's an engineer. And he said, if there's anything more ridiculous to major in than religion, it's got to be art. And I had a double major. And that's what he told me. But he was a generous parent, and I got to go to a very good school with a wonderful group of art teachers there. And my teacher, Richard Lukosius, told me that to go to divinity school was a little bit nuts, but okay, fine, go. And I did, but it was prior to the word feminism was not known very well there.
Mhm.
And I was the first woman who got to do an urban field work at the Exit Coffee House. I was in charge of poetry night there, but the men all had to meet together to make sure that a woman could do this urban job. They wanted to send me to a suburban church. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to, be in the city. Anyway, I was there for a year and transferred to art school, and where I studied with Lasansky at the University of Iowa.
Yeah, so you did a lot, did you do a lot of engraving then, or?
At Iowa, it's mostly intaglio.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Lasansky, as a matter of fact, refused to allow any other kind of printmaking. He
Yeah.
was very autocratic, but he was a great teacher, and so were his other members of the department. So I learned intaglio, but as soon as I got I got an MA, and then I stayed a third year for an MFA, I broke all the rules and started doing monotypes, layered monotypes. And I was influenced by Nathan Oliveira for the multi-layered monotypes that I started to do. Took a class with him in monotype and in painting.
Did Nathan Oliveira teach there?
No, Nathan did a workshop at Centrum in Port Townsend, Washington.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you were probably working mostly with oil-based inks then at that time, right?
Yes, actually I do work with oil-based inks. I don't use much anything toxic that I breathe.
Yeah.
But I do use a few drops of flash oil now and then. And oil, vegetable oil. I clean up with vegetable oil. So I'm not totally non-toxic because I have trouble with water-based inks. They're too squishy for me.
I know. Yeah. I know for me, it was a big transition going from oil-based to Akua, water-based, and just how runny they were.
It is.
Yeah.
I couldn't stick with the Akua. They're too runny and squishy.
Yeah.
So I do work with oil-based inks, but I'm very careful and have a lot of ventilation. And
What did you teach? Did you teach monotype or painting, or what did you teach?
Yes, you name it. I taught it because the North Seattle College, it's now almost the equivalent of, it's a 4-year school now. You can get a BA there. but it's a community college, one of Seattle's 3 community colleges. And I taught at several community colleges part-time. I was one of those adjunct teachers who go up and down the highway. I did that 28 years part-time at 5 different community and also the UW, the university, and community school, community arts, and then in my own studio for almost 10 years. But anyway, yeah, I finally got this job with tenure. I couldn't believe it. It was great.
Yeah, adjunct faculty just kind of get taken advantage of, I think.
Yeah, so you teach anything at the community college.
Yeah.
I taught drawing, painting, art history, intro to art, you name it. But it was great.
Yeah.
So the question I usually start off asking people is, how have you been, occupying yourself during the time of the pandemic with your art practice?
Well, at first, as I said, it was a combo of grief and gratitude. And I started sitting on the couch drawing these small drawings. And I must say, I did and pushed forward by your request for a 10 by 10 piece for the Pandemic Collaborative Art exhibition that you're organizing for January in Chicago.
Yeah.
So I started doing 10 by 10 small pieces called the Virus series, and have done several of those, and then started going a bit bigger. But the first several weeks, I lost my appetite. I just kind of sat there and drew all day. I have a husband who cooks and takes care of me and our pets. So I could do that. I just sat there for quite a while, then set up a table at home because our governor had asked us to stay home. And even though we could have gone to our studio, because we work alone, I work alone there, and John and I sometimes go separately or together there, but that was okay. If you worked alone, you could do that. But I stayed home anyway and worked there. Still have that table loaded with stuff, but have returned to my studio in Seattle. And
well, I'm glad that viral collaboration show helped. That was actually the point of it, is to really, get people to not worry as much and just do something, because I figure anyone can do something small, right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad that helped. That's good.
It really did. And the other thing that helped was I've always loved taking classes from other colleagues, because even though I might, quotes, know the subject, drawing, printmaking, painting, I love to see what colleague, how they're teaching it, what their ideas are, what their special expertise is. Because I've always told my students, hey, if you don't like what I'm teaching, go take another class somewhere. Do as many as you can. So Jeff put up an experimental drawing class, and with a community that had been totally flattened, I decided I'm going to do this, meet a new community. It was incredibly great. So glad that I did it. It broke open the work that I'd been doing so that I could kind of throw the pieces up in the air. They come down, realign them, sew them together, tear them up. And also I met a new group of artists throughout the country. It was fabulous, Jeff.
Yeah, it's really.
So those are the things that have been saving me.
Yeah, it's been wonderful having you in the classes, and you're right, with the community that's developed, it's really unique with online, and it does sometimes, to me, it doesn't even feel online, so it's really different that way. So
yeah, at first, the idea of teaching studio art this way,
Yeah.
it just floored me. You know, I retired from teaching at an institution, and now and then I do teach in my studio, but not formally, really.
Mhm.
Maybe with one person.
Yeah.
But to be able to facilitate that, I really admire what you're doing. I could see that you were educating yourself up late. I bet you were up all night learning how to do this, and you have, and it's very admirable because it has brought lots of people together.
Well, thank you.
It was pretty stressful. I mean, we did that first class in our kitchen.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, that was pretty wild.
It was wild.
Yeah.
You just kept throwing the drawings down.
Oh,
Yeah, I
gosh.
could see them landing on the under the stove or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it was fun. It was the first class and the only one I think I've ever taught barefoot. So,
Well, let's see. Should we look at some of your work? I know that you had sent us images, and maybe you can talk about some of those.
so I'm going to pull them up right now. Okay, you can see this, right?
Yep, I can see the list.
Oh, can you see the image?
No, not yet.
Your screen
I just
sharing
see-
is paused.
I see the list.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Resume share, green. You were screen sharing.
Hold on a second. I'm going to try something different here. Just a second.
It's
Okay.
not. We can see it, but
You know, so far it's just us.
oh, strange. Hit share screen first and try that.
Now the list again.
Okay. I'm just going to, we can keep talking here for a second while I'm going to do something else.
Well,
But
why don't you tell us about, I know that you have, tell us about your studio building that you bought in 03.
Oh, yeah. Well, 4 of us partners bought a building in Seattle. We call it Ballard Works. And it had been a lapidary equipment manufacturing building. Lapidary equipment where people roll stones and machines for jewelry and other things. And the owners of the building had gone where the taxes were less and left the building sitting there in Ballard, which is a neighborhood of Seattle. And our partners found the building and asked us, because I had had this idea that, gee, if we got together, maybe some of us could buy a building together.
Mhm.
And I said, yes, we're interested. So one of the other partners is an architect, and he planned on how to demo and reform that building into a 22 studio art building for artists. And we have this great building. There's 3 of us partners now. And it has studios with amenities, that is high walls, heat, ventilation, windows in most studios. There's a couple with skylights, but most of us have windows. And we are never looking for renters. We always have artists who want to be there because we're real affordable and a great community of people.
I'm sure you do. Okay,
There it is.
Okay, that's
There's
it.
our
Ballard Works. Wow, what a great space.
Yeah, Ballard Works.
So
my studio is my studio is the 2 right windows on either side of the works word.
okay.
Second floor.
So right in here, huh?
Yes, that and the other side of the.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's great.
I have 1,000 square feet.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Since I was in on the design of the studio, I got to have what I wanted.
Very
Yeah.
smart.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
you have bathrooms and sinks in there too, right?
Bathrooms on every floor, and we have a shower for people who might have to go to work or who run or who just want to take a shower.
That's a great
Yeah.
idea.
Sinks in most studios, not all, but several.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 3 floors of studios.
That's wonderful.
Wow. So
Convenient neighborhood.
we'll see if we can pull up another
in
image of the
Seattle.
building. Or your studio, I should say.
Okay.
Is it Dakota?
Let's see. I think this is actually your other studio, but maybe you could talk about that one too.
Okay, I have another studio in Nakata, Washington, which is on the Long Beach Peninsula, Southwest Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Peninsula is surrounded by the Columbia River on the south, Willapa Bay on the east, and the Pacific Ocean a mile away on the west.
Yeah.
And this is my studio there that I built in '08. It's 600 square feet, and it looks out into my lavender garden, which is between the cabin and the studio.
Yeah.
So it's a place to go to be and much more contemplative, I think, than my city studio.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Yeah.
this where you are now in Dakota?
Yes, I'm there now. I'm here now. Here's where I'm at now. Yeah.
Okay, that's a beautiful space. And you do both encaustic and your paintings and drawings in both studios?
I do. You have to have 2 of everything. And having the luxury of having 2 places to work, you do have to have a couple of each thing,
Right.
one in each place.
Yeah.
And this piece is one of my encaustic paintings called Gold Chroma. Most of my work in encaustic is heavily layered.
Mm-hmm.
And this one has fabric collage deep
Wow.
down inside and over and under, and it's been ripped off and put back.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just donated this to the upcoming Bainbridge Island Art Museum auction that's coming up.
Okay.
They've
So
been
what's the
closed.
size on this one, Joan?
This one's about 2 feet by 2 feet.
Okay.
Mhm.
I like how like in this panel right here, it almost has like this kind of stitchery that looks like it's going around the edges.
Uh-huh.
And I like how they feel like they're kind of like it raises across the picture plane, the actual physical surface.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It is kind of like a running stitch, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is a metaphor there. Yeah.
He doesn't know what a running stitch is, but I do.
Yeah.
Let's look at the next one. I think you've got another encaustic here that's similar. I think it's there it is.
And I like how they're kind of off kilter a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
where you're-
Yes, that's right. Your work is too a bit. Yeah. I
Yeah.
like that about the surprise of the dimensions.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And this one, you can sort of see the textiles underneath,
Mhm.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
the texture of the textiles. Some of them have little metallic stuff in them
Mhm.
that make it so you can have dense, very dense, deep suggestion of space.
Yeah.
What year was this?
These are recent. They're 2019,
Mhm. Very nice.
2020 on the gold chroma. I just
Uh-huh.
finished it a little while ago.
Cool.
This one's called Oceana.
Okay. So, where do your sources come from? A lot of times.
Well, Oceana, I can imagine.
Yeah. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah. Well, this one, okay, my sources. This is one of the drawings I did during the master class in experimental drawing that I took.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, this
I
is really
love this piece.
fantastic.
This is called Rack My Mind.
Oh
Mhm.
my God, Joan.
And it is my mind.
Wow.
What's going on there? And what I did in this piece is I took a prior artwork, which actually I'd shown in a show or two, and I scraped off the collage material. The collage material are all these hand-cut little
Yeah.
pieces, squares, and sort of detritus that I cut up and had pasted down. I scraped them off with my scraper as much as I can, but I use silicone glue, so you can't get it all off. I just scraped and scraped, and scraping is one of the things I've done with my encaustics over the years to make layers of color revealed, seen, revealed, and then hidden and revealed again. So in a way, it's related to my scraping, but this time, you know, I had a palette knife, I scraped off, and then I madly colored with white gesso. Jeff said, gesso, go with gesso. And I thought, yeah, okay, I'll start painting with gesso. And I scrinched and scratched on the gesso, and then I cut out some of my crossword drawing pieces from the drawings, as I was mentioning, that I'd done on top of John's crosswords. And they seemed to go where I wanted them to go, because that was my mind, and it was racked. It still is racked.
Yeah.
You know,
this looks like how I feel inside, because with the pandemic and everything. I mean, it's just that, like, there's so much going on. There's so much to think about, you know.
One of the things that I really like is how there's like this in and out of focus of these. Like, there's this really fine detail that kind of it's like kind of a throwback to almost like a lino cut or something. Partially that's because of the black and just the graphic nature. And then you've got like this really diffused surface of these little pixels that are flying all over the place. So it's like kind of like going in and out. And yeah, it's really fantastic.
I mean, this looks like, to me, like a lifetime of experience. I mean, it's just, it's so rich. I just love this piece so much. I can't tell you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's my state of mind right now. And I think you're right. It's a compilation of my state of minds over the last several decades.
Yeah, just really wonderful. And here's another one.
This is a virus diptych. And it's 12 by 16. One of the ones I did sitting on my little nook on the couch in the beginning of the pandemic. And it's two separate crossword drawings put together and overlapped and interspersed with glue and pasted together so that they form a unit. They're unified, but yet they're separate.
Do you seal them in any way, or cover the surface in any way with any?
I just cover the surface with matte medium.
Okay.
Yeah, as I glue them down to try to push the air out from under them.
Yeah.
And the substrate.
Yeah. Boy, I'd love to see these in person. Let's look at another one.
Well, I'm pleased that I'm going to send you one for January.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've seen so many pieces, I can't remember which one you submitted, but oh, is this encaustic?
This is encaustic. It's a detail. I don't think it's the whole piece. Yeah, it's a whole piece. It's 24 by 48. It's a little elongated somehow, but it's inspired by my smoke tree. I have a red smoke tree here in Nakata and one in Ballard where we live. And the smoke tree is a tree that changes its complexion throughout the seasons. It starts out being a rusty russet color, and then it becomes silvery in the spring and summer, and it has these puffs of what look like smoke that are its flower, and then it gradually turns into a dark brownish red.
Wow.
So the smoke tree inspired this piece, and then on the right, a lot of cadmium red light.
Mm-hmm. So do you usually paint with brushes, or how do you apply the paint?
I do.
Okay.
Yes, I paint with brushes
Mm-hmm.
and fire layer over layer over layer over layer, and then I do a lot of scraping.
Have you been?
I was using a single-edged razor blade, which is my best
Yeah.
scraping tool, but now I haven't used that as much. I mostly just use my palette knife and my brush and kind of get rid of stuff and put it back
Mm-hmm.
over and over again until it's got the depth I want,
Yeah.
the density.
Someone asked how big your drawings are. You had said, was it 16 by 20 or something like that?
Well, this drawing in back of me is 22 by 30,
Okay.
and Rack My Mind is 22 by 30. But I'm going to go bigger.
I think you should. They're incredible. Okay, here's another one. Counterweight.
This one is
What?
50 by
Sorry.
Wait a second. What happened?
Whoops.
He's having trouble with. Oh, there
Okay.
we go.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
This is called Counterweight.
Uh-huh.
And underneath, you can see where I had collage material that was removed and covered with pastel, and then glued down parts of my crossword drawings. I started using pastel in the experimental drawing class that
Mm-hmm.
Jeff was leading, because it was handy, and I was home and I didn't really have all my oily stuff there. I didn't have my oil paints or my encaustic. Huge amount of stuff and griddles and you name it. So I thought, well, I'll get some pastel, and I did. Chalk and pastel were my indication, really, of the veiled attitude I wanted to bring out in these pieces that had to do with the weight and the heaviness of the times, but yet the fact that maybe you can, I don't know, see through to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say personally I'm seeing through the other side, but trying.
It's interesting because Nikki Heenan, who I know is watching, when she teaches cold wax classes, she often does what she calls a velatura, which is with some white oil paint and cold wax, I believe, with Nikki, and brayers it on the surface to create a veil. And it's kind of a foggy veil. And that's what this reminds me of. It's beautiful.
Yeah. I worked with cold wax one summer for a show. It was October 2018. And see, if you go to my website, JoanStuartRoss.com, those paintings are there. They're oyster shell shapes, but they're also poplar trees. They're big paintings. And the cold wax does give this wonderful luminosity to the oil paint. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. I like this one a lot. I mean, it just has that kind of orb kind of quality of this piece on the left. It's really beautiful.
I love the title too, Brain Cloud. It's sort of like brain fog, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what was going through my brain.
So when you title your work, Joan, do you title it before or like while you're working or after? Or?
Oh, after. Yeah.
After? Okay.
Yeah, after. You never know what the piece is going to be. I never know. I'm I suppose, process artist, you know. I work it till I work it. and then I title it. I'm a fan of titles. I've got certificates in poetry writing from the UW. That, and $3 can get you a cup of coffee.
It's about as useful as an art degree or a religion degree, right?
Right. Yes. So I love going through in my mind titles and metaphorical text.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, we're going to look at another one. Let's see. Ooh, this is nice.
This is called Lover's Knot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pieced, all the pieces cut out from the arabesque crossword drawings. In this one, I used a lot of pieces from the journal that I covered up.
Mm-hmm.
And I cut them out of the journal. I covered the journal. Then I cut them up from the journal. And then I glued them down where they spoke to me. It wasn't exactly a dialogue, but I felt as though certain pieces belonged with others and made the frame for the Lover's Knot.
Mhm.
And the Lover's Knot, is a sort of transfer of text into image that both is in a way figurative, it's maybe a brain or a head or a heart, but it's also just a mark, a glyph,
Yeah.
something drawn.
And is the blue area around it, is that gesso or is that pastel or both?
It's pastel over gesso, over collage, over ripped up collage.
Just a few things.
Yeah.
Just a few things going on in these pieces.
Lots of layers.
Questions?
Not yet. People are loving this. Stephanie Roberts Camello says, I love the graphic design of all of these. And then Nikki Heenan says, Japanese use ground shells. Go fun in a similar technique, Joan. Just stunning. Beautiful pieces, Joan, says Ellen.
I studied color theory with Joseph Albers at Yale when I was at Yale.
Oh, really?
Divinity school.
Pretty cool.
I kept going back to
Joseph
the art
Albers.
school. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I took printmaking with Petterdy and color theory with Albers.
Oh my
Wow.
God. That's incredible. So this is beautiful. Aggregation. Can you see this yet?
Yeah. Aggregation. Elise just put up a pandemic
Exhibition.
exhibition, and this one is in the exhibition.
Oh, great.
Oh, that's right. Is she in Seattle or Portland?
She's in Portland, yeah. Perseverance is her theme.
Right.
Mhm.
When I did this one, it was all of a sudden, I realized that these layers were kind of like a midden heap where there's junk and leftover stuff and things tossed and memories that you want to kind of move on from. And that's what the aggregation is, the stuff that's built up and that you still have control over, but you can also turn it into something new.
Yeah, I love the history of all of this work. There's a rich history going on. Really beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
I think we have more. Counterweight. Oh, this is great.
This is one of the counterbalance virus series drawings, or they're 15 by 11.
Wow.
And a combination, as you can see, of my hand-cut discs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a little bit, I guess you could say you're in another world when you're cutting discs for 5 or 6 hours at a time.
You must have good scissors.
I have those little Fisk Fiskars.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the curvilinear stuff. I suppose it's a little bit, I call them arabesque, but it's a little bit like your guts, you know?
Mhm.
It's a combo of what's inside and what's outside.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. Really speechless.
Thanks. Yeah, but actually the pandemic, working during the pandemic, I haven't had a moment where I didn't want to be working.
That's fantastic.
It's been a great time for working, but the grievous part of it, you know, that people in middle age to late middle age to older age
Yeah.
are with us no longer, and it's the height of their creativity when, you know, we've honed our skills and people are gone. So it's been a hard time for all of us, I know. This is the one I'm sending to you.
Oh, great.
Great.
Yeah.
So this will be in the show in January.
Yes. Virus series, and then the word I picked was fear.
Oh,
And you can see fear in there if you really look hard. It's in there. It's one of John's words that he had to work with.
wow. Cool.
It's 10 by 10.
Wow,
I think that's
really
most
nice.
of them.
Wow. Okay.
So
those are incredible.
yeah,
I just
it's,
love them. Did you right before this, were you doing encaustic, or have you been like drawing and working with the cross? You said you've been working with the crossword pieces for about a year now.
A couple years.
Mhm.
I started working with encaustic in '94, so that's 26 years ago.
yeah.
Took a workshop from Dale Lindemann, who's a
Uh-huh.
wonderful artist in Seattle, and it's kind of when he was phasing out of encaustic into Rollex. He's coming back, I think, into encaustic now. But I just started making encaustic paintings ever since '94. Worked outside, you know, on a table in the yard and a big extension cord, and then gradually amass the stuff that you need
Hmm.
to do it. And I've taught it.
Yeah.
Have you ever used the encaustic with the crossword puzzle pieces?
I've embedded them, yes, into my paintings, but I'm thinking of doing more of that actually. In this class that's coming up, the workshop.
Yeah. No, that would be great.
Yeah.
I think I could see how they would fit perfectly. I mean, even from doing like collage or transfers or all kinds of stuff. So it would be a perfect fit. When you got into encaustic, what you kind of like got into it as sort of like in the pioneering stages of the resurgence of encaustic. And I mean, it was before Joanne Matera's book was out and all that stuff. And what compelled you to start working with encaustic back then?
Well, it was just this idea of taking a class from a colleague,
Okay.
and he was teaching at Pratt, which is a community arts center in Seattle. And I decided to take that workshop. I knew his work. I was very, very impressed with his work. It's abstract, mostly, well, not really stripes, but areas of color that relate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just signed up. Even though I was teaching painting and printmaking and drawing all those years.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, '94, I was teaching encaustic. No, after Dale, I taught at Pratt. Yeah, but I was teaching not encaustic, drawing and painting and printmaking at Pratt. Different times. You know, it's one of those schools that you're really lucky to have in a city. Been fortunate to have it, but it's not a living. So you teach a class there, but it's just part of all the other things that you do.
Yeah.
You have to do.
Were you living in Seattle and then you would commute or something, or?
Oh, the art center's in Seattle.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, um, and when you started working with encaustic, did you have just a few heating elements, or did you have like the big shebang, or how did
Oh
you?
no, I just had a griddle from the Goodwill,
Okay.
and you know, I
Yeah.
had at the time I had a little later, I had a little studio in a garage where I had a griddle, and then I had another griddle with a baking tin with water in it and muffin tins with the colors.
Oh.
And I mixed my own color with pigment powder.
Mhm.
And then I realized, gee, I did that for quite a while, but then I realized that probably I wouldn't want to continue with the pigment powder. So I gave it to a person who makes paints in Seattle, makes encaustic paint.
Okay.
And now I buy the encaustic blocks of color.
Yeah. So you had basically this water bath going on with the steam coming.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny. But then, I got unique colors. I didn't have to rely on a color maker to
Oh yeah.
provide, but I still mix them I still have griddles from the Value Village.
Yeah.
And then I mix on those griddles. I don't have a professional griddle
Yeah.
setup, but I work on the black, and, and I can pretty much tell what to be just because I've studied color a lot,
Yeah.
the dynamics.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions? There's some comments. Renee Oberdorf says, such inspiring work. Love all the layers, complexity, and associations. And Nanette Freeman says, I haven't been to an art exhibit, art talk since the coronavirus, and I feel like I was just at one today. Thank you. Such amazing work.
Thank you. It's a treat to talk about art with artists. It's something that there's a dearth of now because of the pandemic, and you have to find your Zoom group to be able to talk about your work in a supportive way,
Mhm.
so that you can expand your outlook.
Mm-hmm.
It really does extend what it is you are trying to do, because you don't really know what you're trying to do exactly.
Yeah.
You have some inclinations of what you love to do and what you're trying to say, but yet being able to talk about it is really great.
Yeah. Now, do you think you say, I'm just wondering what you're doing next. You're going to go larger with these drawings. Is that what you said?
Well, I'm going to be in the experimental painting group that's coming up with Jeff and Lisa, both of whom, and also Helen, I've met at the Encaustic conference over the past years.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to be working with painting these next 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks here while I'm here. And we're here till the first part of October. And then I'm thinking I had pinned up some great big pieces of paper on my studio wall at Ballard Works. And I was thinking, well, encaustic panels are getting a little heavy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They are pieces of plywood, and I've been joining them together on the back with plates. Forget the name of them. Certain kind of metal plate. So then it's this huge heft.
Yeah.
If they're big, if the 24 by 24 is okay, but then I have some really big ones,
Yeah.
pieces, and they're all joined together, and they're mending plates. So they're big, and I started thinking I should maybe be working with paper.
Yeah.
But as far now and then, it's kind of fun to sell a painting. Not that I do very much, but works on paper, I don't think I always know what to do with them. It's been
Yeah,
my
I
experience.
think I think it
So,
depends on who you're working with. I think there's the galleries that I work with don't show works on paper, but
yeah,
there are consultants that you can work with that will sell works on paper. And
yeah,
I've been talking to other artists that um, have been selling works on paper. So I think you know,
yeah. I mean, you do what you want to do.
yeah, not
It's
based on the market.
not, you never know. I
Yeah.
mean,
If if we were just focused on selling work, we'd all be in the cupcake business or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
I
But
know I'm planning on starting some large scale drawings, and I just bought this stuff at Home Depot this morning. It's this 1.5 inch big board. So tonight I'm gonna join these 4 boards together, and it's gonna be this big 8 by 8 foot drawing slab that I'm gonna have that I can put the paper on.
yeah,
Are you going to put it on the wall or on the table?
It'll be on the wall, it'll be
uh-huh.
movable because it's made out of foam, so it's really lightweight and I can move it around.
Yeah, I work on the wall mostly when I'm painting
Yeah,
and doing large work.
Yeah.
yeah. I like
I
how things run and all that kind of stuff on the wall.
yeah, but I
Yeah,
love your drawings, Joan.
Yeah, they're
works
really
on paper.
fantastic.
Incredible.
So,
thank you.
and then if you're going to start working on paper, you would use a lot of collage elements also, or?
Yeah, I'd slap it up there.
Mhm.
Um, I think I'd have to. I'd have to really be open to application
Yeah,
because, I work on a table. With my encaustic, I work flat on the
right.
encaustic board, or I have kind of a desk setup, long desk setup. And the work I have to bring over and then bring back and bring it close to the heat, bring it back. It's getting heavy. I've worked with encaustic on paper, but it's always cracked because it's so dense. I like
Yeah,
working thick. So it
yeah.
hasn't worked with encaustic. But if I were working and enlarging my drawings, I would work on the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to kind of go back to your bio because I want to hear a little bit more about you won an award, the Kathy Kollwitz Award for your advocacy of women artists. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, that was the Northwest Women's Caucus for Art.
Okay.
And I was a member of that and had always been supportive of other women artists, younger, usually, not a lot younger, but younger, and maybe less experienced, and been an advocate for their development and showing. And that was a little prize I got from the Northwest Women's Caucus for Art in 1996.
That's great.
Okay.
And it was really nice to receive that.
And do you know Nancy Yodelman?
I have met Nancy at the conference.
Okay.
I love her work.
Yeah.
And we're in touch through Facebook.
Yeah. I wondered because you mentioned that you're looking forward to having her, hearing her when we have her on. So I just wanted
Yes,
to her.
when she
You're both
comes
on the
on.
West Coast. Yeah.
So you've also gone to residencies. How has that influenced your work?
I think in the early days, I took that residency 3 weeks with Nathan Oliveira
Mm-hmm.
in 97. Yeah. And it was very impressive to work with him. He was 50. He was talking about what is it when stuff falls to the ground? Yeah, he was talking about stuff falling to the ground. He was great, and he spent a lot of time with the younger artists there, but his impression on me was very deep and long lasting because what he showed was that he could bring light into his work from the paper and have it show through the layers of, this is in monotype. He does it, of course, in painting, did it in painting too, but in monotype, he was extremely erudite on how to bring light up from the depths of the painting, of the piece, the print, and how the light can be so evocative that it changes the whole element of putting layers of paint on layers of printing ink over it, layers of printing ink. So it was a big influence on me to take that workshop. Now that wasn't really a residency. It was a workshop we signed up for and lived there for 3 weeks at
Wow.
in Port Townsend Park. Yeah, it was great. And residencies, well, I had one in Norway, where I lived in Norway for 3 months and worked on the edge of a fjord there.
Wow.
And I had a dear friend from graduate school, Kristi Ylvasaker, who had married a Norwegian bachelor farmer. And she was a farm wife and artist in Sundal, Norway, on the Sund Fjord. And so was this residency, which of course, through her, I had met the people who had the residency. Kristi and I had a show that traveled in Norway called Family Portrait. It was a collaboration between the two of us work, but we were inspired by one another. And so that residency made it so I could go up and down the fjord and visit Kristi's farm. And that was in '01. It was a great experience.
Sounds amazing.
How long were you there?
3 months.
I was there for 3 months. And then, let's see, I had prior to that had a sabbatical in Paris, where I lived at the Friends Center. You didn't have to be a Zen, but it was called the Zen Center. And you could be a friend of the Zen people. And so I stayed there in Paris. Let's see, that was in April, May, June. Then I went to Norway and then John came over. We spent a week in England visiting his people, his family. And then I went to Finland because I have a good friend in Finland. So that was right before, let's see, what year was that? Yeah, right before that.
When it was easier to travel.
Yeah, it was.
So
those residencies have been great. They are. They give you a solitude that you don't get.
Yeah.
Even if you have some solitude at home, they isolate you in such a way that you can expand.
Yeah.
You don't have those distractions of responsibilities.
Yeah. It gives you a sanctuary that is separate from your home.
In a totally different environment. So it's, I think the combination of those two things is a really nice way to make some different work.
A recent one I had was at Playa 2012, and that's a beautiful place in southeast Oregon, in the high desert and mountains of southeast Oregon, kind of on the way to Reno. You get on Highway 31 and you just hit the metal, and you can get there in 11 hours from Seattle.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place, and they have residencies there for artists and scientists.
Wow.
Playa, it's on the edge of the Great Basin, and the lake, it's called Summer Lake, fills with water, and then it dissipates over the summer, and it's a bird migration place.
Wow.
So the cacophony is incredible.
We just had 30 million birds fly over.
30,000.
Huh?
I thought it was 30.
No, it was 30 million birds
30 million?
fly over Illinois this week, and they asked us to turn our lights off so the birds didn't get distracted by the
Yeah.
run off course.
Oh, they're migrating.
Or
Yeah.
migrating. Yeah. So one last question, Joan, before we end. What advice would you give to other artists right now as we're still in the pandemic?
I would advise to try and stretch as much as possible, given the depression and heaviness that's in the atmosphere. To try and open up and be open to what's new, and to also try to give more and be more loose and scrappy and investigative, and just kind of go for it and not care about all of the heaviness that's happening as much as you can in your work, because you're going to feel it anyway. But I think part of that too is meeting new communities, taking workshops from colleagues, getting so that what you're doing is exciting. That's the key, I think.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
great.
that sounds great, like great advice. So
Yeah.
It's kind of what I'm doing. I asked John,
Yeah.
I said, well, what, one of the questions is, what would I advise? He said, well, what are you doing? Tell Helen and Jeff what you're doing.
yeah.
So, yeah, I think that just making room for new stuff
Mhm.
and trying to be open.
Mhm. Well, that's wonderful advice.
Well, we're gonna end it now, but
Thank
yeah,
you so
thanks,
much.
thanks for being on today, Joan. It was really great. And when we saw the pictures of your studio yesterday, the outside, and you were telling us about like the oysters and everything, it sounds like a
Yeah.
great place to be right now. So
It's oyster country.
yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you again for asking me to come on. It's
Oh,
been a
for
great
sure.
treat.
That was really great.
Really appreciate it. Love your work.
Okay. Well, take care.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks
Bye,
everybody
everyone.
for joining us.